Tonight you will do something no other animal on Earth has ever done. You will take your food, and before you put it in your mouth, you will set it on fire. On purpose. It feels like the most ordinary thing in the world. You turn a dial. A flame appears. You wait a few minutes, and a hard, cold, difficult thing becomes soft and warm and easy. You do it without thinking. You do it every single day. But step back for a moment and look at it the way an alien might. A creature deliberately destroying its own food with heat before eating it. No lion does this. No wolf does this. No chimpanzee, your closest living relative, sharing almost all of your DNA, has ever once in millions of years held a piece of meat over a flame. Only you. Only your kind. And the strange part is not that you cook. The strange part is what cooking did to the thing reading these words. Because the real answer is far stranger than a recipe. The fire didn't just change your food. It reached up through your stomach and into your skull, and it rewired the animal you are. Think about what eating actually costs. For most animals, the day is a grind. A gorilla, an animal built almost entirely of muscle, spends up to 8 hours a day chewing. Just chewing. Leaves and stems and raw plants are tough. They resist. They have to be ground down by enormous jaws and pushed through a long, heavy gut that ferments them slowly to squeeze out energy. Raw food is a bad deal. It is bulky, it is hard to break down, and your body has to spend energy just to unlock the energy inside it. A raw potato will mostly pass straight through you. A raw steak gives you far less than you think. The calories are in there, but they are locked behind a wall of tough fiber and tightly coiled protein. Now imagine someone hands you a key. That key was fire, and the first human to use it had no idea what they were starting. Heat does to food what your body would otherwise have to do itself, slowly and expensively on the inside. It breaks open the cell walls of plants. It unravels the tangled coils of protein and meat so your enzymes can get at them. It gelatinizes starch. In plain terms, cooking pre-digests your meal before it ever reaches your teeth. The fire does the work your gut used to do. A Harvard primatologist named Richard Wrangham spent years sitting with this single idea, and in a book called Catching Fire, he laid out something quietly explosive. He argued that cooking is not a nice cultural extra that humans happen to invent. He argued that cooking is the reason humans exist at all. His claim was simple and bold. Once your ancestors started cooking, they were getting far more energy from the same amount of food in far less time. And a body flooded with new, cheap energy is a body that can afford to build something it never could before. But was that really true? Could cooking actually unlock that much more fuel? It sounds almost too neat. So one of Wrangham's colleagues, a scientist named Rachel Carmody, decided to test it directly. She took mice. She fed one group raw food and another group the very same food cooked. Same ingredients. Same weight. The only difference was the fire. And the mice eating cooked food gained more weight and held on to more energy than the mice eating it raw. The calories on the label were identical. The calories the body could actually reach were not. That is the hidden trick. A number on a package tells you the energy in the food. It does not tell you the energy you can get out of the food. Cooking quietly raised that second number, meal after meal, for thousands of generations. Now follow what that surplus does, because this is where the fire climbs up into your head. There's a strict rule in biology that almost no one outside of it has heard of. Two scientists, Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler, described it and called it the expensive tissue hypothesis. The idea is this. Some organs in your body are extraordinarily costly to run. Your brain is the most expensive of all, and so is your gut. A long, heavy gut burns enormous amounts of energy just to keep digesting. So does a large brain. And here is the catch. An animal living on the edge, eating just enough to survive, cannot afford to make both of them huge at the same time. The body has a budget. If you want to grow one expensive organ, you usually have to shrink another. So look at what happened to your ancestors. As you go forward through human evolution, the gut gets shorter, smaller, lighter. The huge fermenting belly of an ape shrinks into the modest stomach you carry now. And in exactly the same stretch of time, the brain does the opposite. It swells. It nearly triples in size. One organ shrank, the other ballooned. And the thing that paid for the trade was the fire. Cooking made food so easy to digest that your gut no longer needed to be a giant churning factory. The energy and the bodily space that used to be spent on digestion were suddenly free. And evolution, with that surplus in hand, poured it straight into the brain. You did not grow a big brain and then learn to cook. You learned to cook, and that is what allowed the big brain to grow. A Brazilian neuroscientist named Suzana Herculano-Houzel pushed this even further, and her version is the one that should stop you cold. She found a way to actually count the neurons in a brain, the tiny cells that do your thinking. A human brain holds around 86 billion of them. That is a staggering number, and every one of those cells is hungry. Your brain is about 2% of your body weight, and it eats roughly 20% of your energy. It is the most demanding organ you own, running day and night, even while you sleep. So she asked a brutal question. Could a primate eating only raw food ever afford a brain like yours? She did the math on the hours. A great ape feeding on raw plants and fruit would have to eat for something like 9 hours a day to fuel a brain with as many neurons as yours. 9 hours. There are not enough waking hours in the day to gather and chew that much raw food and still do anything else. The raw diet simply cannot pay for a human brain. The budget does not close. Cooking is what closed it. By packing more reachable energy into every bite and slashing the time spent chewing, fire made the impossible brain affordable. The animal that controlled fire could feed billions of neurons in a couple of hours of eating, and then walk away from the meal with the rest of the day and the rest of its mind free. And think about what filled those freed hours. You were no longer chained to your food for most of your waking life. You had time to make tools, time to plan a hunt instead of just stumbling into one, time to sit, and the fire itself pulled everyone in close. A fire has to be tended. It has to be shared. So your ancestors gathered around it in the dark, in a tight circle, night after night. That circle may be the oldest meeting in human history. People facing each other with hours of time and full stomachs and nothing forcing them apart. Some researchers think this is where so much of what makes you human took root. The talking, the stories, the passing down of what one person knew to the next. The fire didn't just cook the meat. It built the room where culture could happen. And notice what the fire demanded in return. You cannot grab a flame and eat it. You have to wait. You have to keep it alive overnight. You have to share what it cooks, because a fire cooks more than one person can eat at once. So the same fire that fed your brain also forced you to plan ahead, to cooperate, to divide the work, to trust the person across the flames to do their part. Patience and sharing were not virtues your ancestors chose. They were the price of admission to the fire. There is even a quiet hint of this in your own body. A meal that is warm and cooked and shared still calms you in a way a cold, raw one does not. That feeling is old. It is the echo of safety around a fire that pushed back the dark and the predators and the cold, a place where, for a few hours, your ancestors could simply be together and think. So here is the twist that turns the whole story around. You probably think of your big brain as the proud thing that lets you do everything else, including cook. The brain is the cause, the cook as the effect. But the order is backwards. The cooking came first. The fire was not the product of a clever brain. The fire is what made the clever brain possible. You're not a smart animal that figured out cooking. You're a cooking animal that, because of it, became smart. And it goes deeper than history. It's still inside you right now. This is why you cannot live on a raw diet the way other animals do. People who try to eat everything completely raw, even with all the modern tools to grind and process it, often struggle to keep weight on. Their bodies are quietly starving in the middle of plenty because human digestion was rebuilt around the assumption that the fire did half the work first. Your gut is short. Your jaw is weak. Your teeth are small. You are, in the most literal sense, an animal designed to eat cooked food. You cannot fully go back. So look down at your next meal in a new way. That warmth rising off the plate is not just comfort. It is the same trick your ancestor discovered by a fire 500,000 years ago. The trick that shrank a gut, grew a brain, freed a day, gathered a circle, and slowly turned a clever ape into you. Every cooked meal you have ever eaten is a tiny reenactment of the single act that made your species. So tonight, when you take your food, and before you put it in your mouth, you set it on fire, remember what you are really doing. You're not just making dinner. You're doing the one thing no other animal on Earth ever learned to do. The one thing that long ago quietly made you who you are.